Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura, and today I'm going to tell you about all of my favorite thrillers. So this definitely feels like one of those videos that's almost like a rite of passage for booktubers who talk about just general fiction. So here we are. Thrillers, obviously are extremely popular, and there's so many out there that seem to sort of follow a same sort of formula. And so part of the reason why I love all of these so much is because they're all pretty unique, and they all offer something different than the husband did it, right? So these are in no order, but I just want to talk about my favorite thrillers. So first up is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, the OG of the thriller, in my opinion. So this one follows Libby Day, who is just 7 years old when her older brother murders their two sisters and their mom, and Libby's testimony is what seals his conviction. So 25 years later, Libby has kind of spent her life floundering and just not really making much of herself, and she's kind of been living off of money sent to her by people who feel bad for her, like her entire life. And so someone gets in touch with her from the Kill Club, which is basically a group that is obsessed with her brother Ben's innocence, and they do not believe that he did this. And at first they're kind of coming for her because, again, her testimony was what put him away. But it kind of gets her to question whether or not she remembers what she thought she did, if that makes sense. So she starts revisiting people from her past, and she's kind of comes to the conclusion, shoot, maybe I didn't see what I thought I did. So much like the name implies, this is a very, very dark book. It basically doesn't have a single likable character in it, and it's super graphic, so you've been warned. I basically forget everything about every book I read, even if I love them, but I can still remember details of this book, despite the fact that the last time I read this has to be at least 5 years ago, if not more. So yeah, I kind of toes the line of being over the top, but it somehow works really well, and the ending will blow your mind. Next is The One by John Mars. So in this one, there has been technology invented that biologically matches people with their soulmates. So all you have to do is order a kit and swab your cheek and then send it back. And so a lot of people do the swab, and it kind of takes a long time to match them because the other person obviously has to also want to participate. So the book follows 5 people who have all been matched, but it doesn't always go so easy with the happily ever after. So this is kind of a social commentary type thriller than more of a domestic thriller, and it could definitely be like a Black Mirror episode. It also has super short chapters, 2 pages, 1 page, and all of them end on a cliffhanger, so it's really easy to get through this. And the way it's written also makes it super easy to just one more chapter, because like I said, it's 5 different people's stories, and so it goes in order. So it's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, first. So basically, if you're really invested in the second story and you end on a cliffhanger and you want to know what happens, you have to read 5 more chapters before you get back around to the second person. So basically, block out a lot of time to read this because, yeah, you'll want to read it all at once. So my next favorite is The Lies I Tell by Julie Clark. This was super popular, I think, last summer, and it was a Book of the Month pick in June 2022. And it was also the only book that my book club unanimously loved. So that's high praise, trust me. So this is about a woman named Meg Williams, and she's a con artist. She's scammed tons of people, but she goes very vigilante with it. She only scams people who are bad, who she knows have caused harm to either her or someone else. And there's a reporter named Kat who knows Meg's true identity, because obviously she uses some aliases. And Kat had, a few years back, had her life essentially upended by some actions of Meg's that resulted in something else happening. That's all I'm going to say. So Kat finds out that Meg has come back to LA, I think it's LA, and she decides to sort of infiltrate her world and become her friend, and then she ends up working for her. But Meg doesn't know who she is, and that cat is essentially trying to like sabotage her from within, keeping her enemies close, right? So this is kind of like a feministy Catch Me If You Can. If you've read the book or seen the movie, it's so fast-paced and like truly shocking, but it never feels unrealistic. There are dual perspectives, and this makes it really hard to know whose side you're on or who you want to root for. Your loyalties definitely seem to change depending on who is narrating. And that's pretty on the nose because like the message of the book is basically can be summed up with the quote, "The difference between justice and revenge comes down to who's telling the story." I mean, truer words have never been spoken. So yeah, this is a very easy 5 stars for me. And I also recommend Julie Clark's debut, The Last Flight. Also very, very good. So next is one of the most personal on this list for me, and that is Falling by T.J. Newman. So this is easily one of the most tense books I've ever read, and I don't know if that's because I'm a flight attendant or because it's just really, really tense, but so this one opens with a commercial airline captain getting ready to work a flight from LA to New York, and once he gets in flight, I can't remember exactly how he gets the message, but basically he finds out that his wife and son were taken hostage, and the only way that they will be let go and allowed to live is if he follows the hostage taker's exact instructions and crashes the plane. That's all you need to know. So the author of this is a former flight attendant, and she really brought a great like first-hand viewpoint to the story that I think is missing in a lot of aviation-centric books. And like, of course, as a flight attendant myself, I really appreciate that she showed just how hard we work and what we're trained for, because it's a lot more than just giving you pretzels and Diet Coke. Yes, a pilot is, you know, the protagonist, I guess, but like, not really. This is a love letter to flight attendants, essentially. And it is one of the most fast-paced and stressful books I have ever read. The next one I know I have talked about on my channel before, and that is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. I know I talked about this recently because her book that came out last summer, Stay Awake, was so bad, and I hated it. But we're not here to talk about books I didn't like. So this one is like one of those sort of ripped from the headlines type books about a prominent swimmer from a wealthy family who's accused of rape. It follows Rachel, the host of a true crime podcast, as she covers an ongoing rape trial for the 3rd season of her podcast. At the same time, she gets a letter from a fan asking her to investigate the death of her sister, who suspiciously drowned many years ago earlier in the same town as the rape trial. Being in such a small town, it seems like maybe these 2 cases are related, but Rachel basically is put in the situation where she has to see how much of the past she's willing to dig up. So this is super unique, in my opinion, that like in addition to all the twists you come to expect in a thriller, it's also really moving. I read this about a week after I read Chanel Miller's memoir, who, if you don't know, was the victim of the rape case that this book draws from, and it was a gut punch, for sure. But it made this book even more powerful. I love how the author made this so thought-provoking, but it's still definitely a true thriller. And there's a sequel coming out in August, and it's called Dark Corners, and it features Rachel going undercover to find an influencer who's gone missing. And yeah, I love anything that has like social media, influencers, whatever involved. So I'm psyched. And I actually got a copy on NetGalley to read it early, so I cannot wait. Last but not least, my final favorite thriller is The Push by Ashley Audrain. So people have very, very polarizing opinions on this book, and obviously I loved it. Definitely don't recommend reading this if you're pregnant or planning to become pregnant soon. So this is about a woman named Blythe who came from a line of like unloving and like uncaring mothers. So she is determined not to be like that when she has kids. Her husband, super supportive, believes she's going to be a great mom, and they have their daughter Violet, and Blythe basically feels nothing she doesn't feel what you're, supposed to feel when you have a baby. And she kind of thinks that, like, something's wrong with her. Because as Violet, the baby, grows into a toddler and a small child, she kind of exhibits some pretty disturbing behavior, and it seems to only happen when Blythe is around. And her husband is like, what are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with Violet. And he's kind of turns into a gaslighting asshole. So they end up having another baby a few years later, and Blythe feels what, mothers generally feel when they have a newborn. And then a tragedy strikes that rips apart the family. So this is another one with very short chapters that you can read so quickly. It's written in the second person, so it's written as Blythe talking to her husband, with all of the you did this, you did that. So it's kind of just weird to get used to, but once you do, it's fine. It definitely keeps you questioning if Blythe is projecting her fears onto her kid or if there really is something wrong with her. And I don't know. I love creepy kid books, and this one, as far as I'm concerned, is the gold standard. So there it is, Booktuber Achievement unlocked. Those are my favorite thrillers. I'd love to know if you read any of these and what your favorites are, so let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you would give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.